This is a video that does not have all of the answers, because here's the tension. You can have something that is complete plagiarism, that is a copycat, that is not original whatsoever. It exists. And then the other side, you can have something that is completely, utterly, totally original, and yet nobody likes it. So that's the tension. How do you not just copy everybody else, but how do you also have something original that people actually like? Because if you're the first person to do something, and you're original and it's successful, there's just no guarantee that it's better. Original does not necessarily mean better, it just means original. I think about AOL, American Online, or whatever it was called. And it was the first thing and it was successful, and then it just didn't last. Just because something is original and the first thing doesn't mean it's going to be the best. The iPhone was not necessarily original. It was new, it was innovative, it combined a bunch of stuff together, but you can't say it was completely original. And things that are completely original are a little weird and don't really catch on very well. That's true in products, that's true in movies, that's true in stories, that's true in just all of life. Original is great, but it doesn't necessarily mean better. It plays out in a lot of areas. And I think as we look through some of these, the point is not that it was completely original, it's that something feels original. Because really deep down, I don't think anything is completely original in this world. I think about on YouTube, you have the comfort of a familiar face. There's something familiar that you want to see. Maybe it's a movie reviewer, and you know for sure that the movie reviewer, you're comfortable, you're familiar with it. And then they're talking about a movie you don't know, something original. And so, altogether, your mind likes something original when it's presented by something familiar. Or think about a Mr. Beast video. There may be a video that you've never seen before of 100 people competing in whatever thing, but it's presented by a familiar format, a familiar face, and you understand what you're going to get into before you get into it. But the originality of the idea, because you haven't seen it before, brings you in. It's similar to a quote used in the film industry of, give me the same thing, but different. People want something familiar, but they want something original. They don't want to just get stuck in the same old, same old. I think about in films, original films, films that are totally, completely, utterly original are just so weird that nobody actually likes them. There are so many films that are completely original, has never been done before. And yet, you never heard of them, and I've never heard of them because they're just not very interesting. They don't catch on. It has to be a pairing. I think about how Avatar is not an original story whatsoever, but the technology was the first time that technology had been used on that scale. And so audiences bought something original and wanted to see something original, but it was masked in the familiar story. Or I think about Guardians of the Galaxy. It felt very original the first time you watch it, but it's presenting new characters. We haven't seen a talking tree and a talking raccoon necessarily, but it's in a very familiar world of the MCU, and it's very familiar in its tone, and it's just very familiar. So original ideas seem to catch on when they're presented in a familiar world. So I think it's a lot more of how you choose to be original, how, versus the fact that you are original. Not saying that's absolutely true, that's just kind of as I'm thinking through it. Because no idea is completely original without some sort of influence. You're either copying something or you're influenced by something. And a completely original idea is probably going to be so weird that nobody would know what to do with it. So we have to speak original in terms of the familiar. And original doesn't necessarily mean better. So I'm curious at this point, as I was thinking through it and I was writing this up and just mulling it over, is original even something you want to strive for? How much weight would you put on original? I'm curious. Go ahead and put it in the comments. How much weight would you put on something being completely, utterly original? I think about some of the books called Supertext. Stephen Sample of USC, in his book, The Contrarian's Guide to Leadership, talks about supertext. And supertext would be the text that a lot of other things are based on. So for example, Plato's Republic, or the Bible, or just some massive book that was a huge thing. And he says you should study those and not study all the copycats or the things that were inspired by those texts. And you could say those texts were original, but then you could also say that something like Plato or I'm trying to think of something, I don't have any off the top of my head, but a lot of those texts and a lot of the best books, even more recently, like the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, there's been a bunch of copycat books ever since then. And all these original supertext, even within there, they're influenced by something else. They were influenced by the people of their day and by the people they were in interaction with and by the ideas of the day. And so to us, it may feel original, maybe the first time it was put all together, but it's all inspired by something else. And so something can either be a copycat, like a lot of books trying to copy how to win friends and influence people and copying a lot of the popular YouTubers, or it can be original in that It is just influenced by other people. And so I don't think anything can be completely original. Now, something can be completely original to an audience. I think of The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, one of the most life-changing books I've ever read. And it, to me, felt very original. I'd not heard it presented in this way. But ultimately, it's just like a giant research paper. It's synthesized all these different sources together in order to present a fact that had been presented before in 100 other ways, but just had not been presented in that way to me. And so it felt really original. And now when I read another book similar to it, I feel like, it's just not the same as the original one to me. And a personal story can be original, and yet it can feel really familiar. I think of all the memoirs out there and the people telling their story or writing their screenplay about their personal story. And to them, it's completely original. But to everybody else, it just feels like they've seen it before. It feels familiar. And some of those really, really, really original stories out there of someone's life story are just so weird that no one has any context of how to interpret it. I think about cover bands. Cover bands don't change the world. Cover bands are copycat bands. They copy someone else's music in order to present their own thing. Or the ultimate cover band, the tribute artists, they literally copy the same style and how it's done. And cover bands don't change the world. They're not trying to be original. They are doing something in order to earn money or because they enjoy it. Nothing wrong with it. But cover bands have a purpose. They're not trying to be original. And yet someone who's completely original, they may never get any playing time. They may be trying to play at the local whatever where you play, and nobody wants to hear songs that they've never heard before. They just want to hear the familiar. And so once again, the tension is over something that's been done to death and is familiar or something that's completely original. And yet something can't become familiar unless it was original in the first place. And something can't be original if it wasn't inspired by something in the first place. And so walking in all these circles, what even is this video about? Well, if you've watched this far, I've tried to put it into two thoughts on what original means. And the first one is we deem something unoriginal, whether it's a movie or a book or someone's idea. Something seems unoriginal when in a desire to be loved or have success, someone copies something from another. They have the motivation of just getting quick success, or they want someone to love them, and so they copy something in order to create something that is sort of new, but the whole point is to be loved just like the other thing is loved. And yet we deem something original when in a desire to have integrity or to take a risk, whether creative risk or something, we synthesize ideas into new ideas that are clearer and more profound or tied in with the story. And so that may make absolutely no sense. And I'm not even trying to make it make sense. That's just my take as I struggled with trying to figure out what even is original mean and is it worth trying to be original. But it comes down to inspiration is different than trying to copy something and get quick success. And so if somebody out of a true inspiration creates something that feels new and yet is rooted in the familiar because it's inspired by something, I think that's a lot better than something that is a complete copycat or something that is so weird and original that is just trying to be weird and original and it just doesn't fit. And so when I get to a stopping point and can't think of what I'm even trying to say, I like to turn to somebody else. And so The Accidental Creative, a book that's been inspiring me recently, references another guy's book. This guy's named Thomas Merton, and he says in The New Seeds of Contemplation, there can be an intense egoism in following everybody else. People are in a hurry to magnify themselves by imitating what is popular, and they're too lazy to think of anything better. Hurry ruins saints as well as artists. They want quick success, and they're in such a haste to get it that they cannot take the time to be true to themselves. And when the madness is upon them, they argue that their very haste is a species of integrity. I think about how a fan of the Clone Wars can create an animated series and put in a lot of work, and its original idea technically to them to create an animated series based on this B character and telling a story about them. And it takes a lot of work and there's a lot of creative effort that goes into it. And the story itself is original, but it's rooted in the familiar and it's inspired by someone else. And then I also think of a series that I'm working on that you could say it's inspired by the Clone Wars. Absolutely. There's elements of homage all over it, yet it's something in its own way trying to be familiar and trying to be original. And yet, at the same time, it's going to be a lot harder to get an audience for that than a fan film of the Clone Wars. So, it's an interesting conundrum I've been thinking of. The work that I do, it may be completely original, but then it's going to be a lot harder to get an audience for it. And the stuff that is halfway original, that is just trying to be successful, it just feels like it's trying too hard. It's not something I actually care about. But then somewhere in there, there's those things that are inspired by other things. And they take some inspiration and they synthesize some new ideas together. And the world thinks that those things are original. And because something feels original, I think it fits the definition of being original. So that's me blabbing for a long time, trying to think about what in the world original means as a creative. So I'm curious, what's your definition of original? What's something that you think is completely original, is not synthesized by anything else? Do things like that even exist? And what's something that's okay to be a complete copycat of, as long as it has just enough element of change? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious to hear what you think.